Welcome back to another video, guys. Today we're going to be doing a first round draft recap. This is going to be coming out a little late. I apologize for that. I was busy recording the Charlotte video, the Charlotte Hornet video, trying to get that one out because that was a pretty massive trade and ordeal. But guys should be seeing another Miami rebuild with Giannis as well. So I was busy getting those two out, which is why I'm doing this so late. I have no idea if it's even worth doing a second round recap or like draft grades or whatever, but here we are nonetheless. So why not just get started? I'm gonna try and make this a shorter video. With that being said, first four picks, I feel like they're pretty obviously all A's. Any one of these guys could have realistically gone number one in a lot of other drafts, but like obviously you take AJ Devonta to the Wizards. He's probably the best player in this draft. Darren Peterson has a really high ceiling, but there's one concern with him, and that is potential injury with him. So I understand why he fell. Cameron Boozer goes number three. He was, you know, he was like the first award winner. What award was that? I'm forgetting. That didn't go number one overall. So that tells you how loaded this class is, which is insane. And then Chicago Bulls, you know, take the best that's left. Whoever's left out of those four, just take them. Easy pickings. So yeah, obviously A's across the board for the first four overall picks, but I feel like that's pretty obvious. So we can move on. For number five, uh, Keaton Wagler going to the Clippers, I have at a B minus just because I feel like he's still a pretty raw prospect, and you're gonna have to spend time developing him. And with Kawhi Leonard being on that roster, I don't know if you really have the time to develop him. So I would like to see somebody a little bit more NBA ready go there if they're trying to compete now with Kawhi Leonard. But if this is more of a, future type of pick, then I understand it. I just feel like you could have also probably traded down to like seven or eight with Sacramento or Atlanta and still snagged him because I feel like some of these point guards were better fits, where they were going. So yeah, I'm gonna give him B minus, although I still really like the pick. For number six, I had the Michael Brown pick for the Nets. I have at a B. I like Darius Acuff more, but understandable why they took Brown. Uh, you took so many point guards in last year's draft, and like only one of them has looked good enough that he actually might work out. Ben Sharif, had some issues and some injury issues, and we'll see if he ends up working out. He was looking decent, but like you needed like a wing prospect or like even the center prospect now that you've traded away Nicholas Claxton. So I don't know what they're gonna do over there with all of those guards, but hey man, it's up to them. Whatever their GM is thinking, then, by all means. But do you really need that many guards? Whatever. For seven, Sacramento took Darius Acuff. I have a B plus. I thought he was the best of the rest. I really like that pick for them. So it makes perfect sense for them. Although this Atlanta pick, taking Kingston Flemings, I have an A minus because I do really like Kingston Flemings. He's my favorite of these guards, and he ended up falling to Atlanta, who, obviously you have CJ McCollum there, but he's old. He's probably not going to be there for much longer. He signed. I'm pretty sure he's going to, sign that 1 year deal. I'm pretty sure he did. What was it, $21 million, right? So they have that. They have him for at least another year, and then they'll have to move on probably due to his age. So, taking the future where he can just sit behind him for a year, learn behind, at one point was a very good guard. So I think it's a perfect pick for them. For number nine, though, Dallas Mavericks has Merez Johnson. Dude, I have it as a D plus. Is he like a really good defender, and he's probably going to keep that going into the NBA? Yes. His head coach, I don't know how much sway he had in this, but the head coach took him. I don't like that pick, dude. Like, I feel like that was way too early. You could have traded down, you know, OKC had all these picks. You could have traded down with them. Dude, there's so many options to take him later in the draft. I just don't understand why they took him at nine. He's not like the number nine prospect. He's way further down. So the player's good. He's just, you know, he's is he gonna fit in that team? He probably. you need a defensive wing, so yeah, you can take him, but like that team is not very good at shooting. Like Kyrie Irving is like the only, you know, good shooter they have with Klay Thompson regressing as much as he has. So I don't know. We'll have to see how that pick turns out. Big Ten, you have the Bucks selecting Braden Burries, and I have it as an A. I mean, that was a perfect selection. I really like that selection. You know, take a safe pick, guy that can be, you know, a future cornerstone of your franchise. I really like the pick. You know, he's it's everything that you want in a rebuild. You know, for the Bucks with Braden Burries. So I don't think there's much to be said there. I love that pick. Pick 11, Golden State select the Axel. I have it as a B plus. There's some age concerns, but at the same time, you're trying to win right now with Golden State. There's not a whole lot of youth on that talent with Curry and Draymond, and if they resign Kristaps and Jimmy Butler when he comes back, Al Horford. So I think it's a really good pick. You needed a, defensive wing. He's not going to be your number one scorer, obviously, but he can still contribute offensively. He's not a complete liability on the offensive end. He's got decent inside game, decent 3-point range. So I feel like it's a perfect pick for them. So B plus. Pick 12. OKC. They select a Daymar, which, oh my God, how did this end up happening, bro? They didn't have to move up. They didn't have to do nothing. They just sat there and they took a Daymar. A minus, obviously, even if you re-sign all your players, actually, um, the day that I'm recording this, I think, who was it? They have already traded away Isaiah Joe, and then they just made another trade this morning that Shams reported, and they got rid of Isaiah Joe, and the trade I'm referencing earlier is when they traded with the Hawks, and that one is not Isaiah Joe. Obviously, they got rid of Isaiah Joe today for future draft conversation. But yeah, they got rid of Aaron Wiggins. That's the guy I'm thinking about. So they got rid of Aaron Wiggins and they got rid of Isaiah Joe today for future draft compensation. So, you know, I just don't understand how they let this happen. It's too perfect of a pick for them. It's just like a wimpy stopper, quote unquote, Like this is exactly what they took him for. Is he going to be athletic enough to keep up with Wimby and the 3-point line? Who knows? But I really like it. He'll be able to battle with him down in the paint. You get what is it? What is he like 7'4", 7'3", something like that? Insane. It's too unfair. Too unfair. Okay. Pick 13 is the Heat pick that they traded to Milwaukee in the Giannis trade, and they took Nate Ahmet with it, as you can see here, right there. And I have it as a B. Nate Ahmet, really raw prospect, really skinny, wing in term, kind of reminds you of Giannis when he was originally drafted by the Bucks. It's kind of a pick that everybody expected to be happen. It's the type of pick that they love to make, high upside, and really boom or bust type prospect, type of wing. So can he develop into something? Yes. Can he not develop into something? Yes. Very definition of a boomer bust prospect. It's like I I guess you have the luxury to do that now since you're not competing and it's going to be the first year of your rebuild. But I don't know. I like some of these other guys better, but it's the typical, Milwaukee Bucks pick. What can you say about it? Okay, pick 14 here for the Charlotte Hornets. They took Stybach out of Washington, and I have it as a C plus. I don't love the pick, but I don't hate the pick. Um, I feel like it's just like an average pick. Obviously, at the time, we didn't, LaMelo was still on the team, and now he isn't. Um, so I don't know how to feel. Like, is he gonna be able to compete? Is he gonna be like at the NBA level? Is he really gonna do it? I have no idea. I'm not sold on him as a prospect, so that's why my grade is kind of lower than other people's. But we'll have to see how he turns out. Pick 15. goes from the Bulls to the Trailblazers, and they take Daniel Swain. I have it as a B. I like Daniel Swain as a prospect. I feel like they got good value for him here at 15. Um, he's got decent upside. I feel personally like he has a pretty high floor, but he also doesn't really have that high of a ceiling. So I feel like it's a good pick. Probably would have liked to see him go, you know, somewhere else where he's going to get more minutes, more of the ball, able to develop a bit more. But I like the pick overall. It's not a bad pick as compared to what I have on pick 16, which went from, was swapped around all over the place. So it ends up in OKC, and they took Bennett Sturts, who I really like Bennett Sturts as a prospect. I just feel like, what are they gonna do with another guard over there in OKC? They have so many guards. Like, how are you gonna get all these guards in minutes? Obviously, you have Shea over there. You just traded away Isaiah Joe, so you don't have to deal with that anymore. You have the two guys that you traded or that you have backing up Shea this last year, but obviously one of them is gonna have to start now that the other two are gone. Like, you have so many guard prospects that all need the ball to develop, and I don't like there's not enough to go around. You have like Jared McCain, you have Alex Caruso, who's like a guard wing hybrid. You have AJ Mitchell, you have Nikola Topic. Like, you have all these people. Like, who are you gonna choose to develop? Who are you gonna prioritize developing? Who's gonna get these minutes and the ball? So I really like him as a prospect, but there was just like this is probably like one of the worst situations he could have personally gone to. Pick 17, the Pistons ended up with it, and this one was also one that got swapped around a whole lot. And Ibuka Okore got selected here, and I don't understand why Ibuka Okore got here. There was much better guard prospects still, like Christian Anderson, who went with the pick after. LeBaron Philon was still on the board. He was really good, but they ended up with Ibuka Okore. Ah, It's got to be a C because like there's better guard prospects, but at the same time he's not horrible. I feel like he's a bit more. I do feel like he does fit like the Detroit culture a bit more than these other guards. But at the same time, it's going to take longer to develop. It's going to be more of a project than these other guards were. But what do I know? He must have killed his work out with them, the interview, whatever. They must have loved him to take him over some of these other guard prospects that were still there. 18, Chris Anderson got selected to the Charlotte Hornets. I originally had this pick graded pretty low. I love Christian Anderson as a prospect. He was probably my favorite later prospect for me personally. I was really hoping that my Denver Nuggets would end up with him, but obviously that didn't come to fruition. And I was originally going to go really low on this because they had some good point guard minutes. Trey Mann might have gotten minutes over him. Might have took some of hits and minutes. They had LaMelo Ball at the time, but now that we know that he's gone, I love this pick. I feel like this can be the future point guard for the Charlotte Hornets. He's a good three-point shooter. He's a good defender. He's a bit small, so he might get exposed by some of the bigger guards like LaMelo Ball, but we'll just have to see how he ends up, combating that at the NBA level. Pick 19 is the Toronto Raptors pick of Allen Graves. I gave it a C minus. Allen Graves is an okay prospect, and I probably would have given him a B if he went to a lot of other places. But like, can the Raptors just commit to selecting an actual big man? Like, they don't have like anybody over like 6'11", that mark. They don't have anybody on that roster. And yeah, Colin, Murphy Colin Boyle's over there. Good defender. Obviously he was a big surprise this last year, and he's gonna be, a future starter for that team, and he's gonna do really well. But at the same time, take a big man. You need a big man. You need a solid big man, or you're gonna run the small ball, and you don't have James Harden. Like, I don't understand it. I feel like he could have gone to a better fit. I do like him as he's a decent prospect. He can, kind of a jack of all trades, I feel like. But I don't know. I just don't like the fit for him. So hence the low grade. Okay, what else? We have pick 20 now, which ended up with San Antonio, and they select Jaden Quidditz. Right, dude. I did see a report that he might have to sit out this year due to a cleanup surgery on his knee. So we'll have to see how that ends up going, and if he misses his, true rookie season, and it has to defer it to next year. But they took another freaking big defender, and it's just like, oh my God, they got better. They got so much better with that pick, and I hate it because I can't grade it low. It's got to be a B plus. I dude, they're gonna be so good for so long, and this is just gonna add on top of that. Now you can actually get Wemby off the court, and you don't have to worry about it. He's not too much of an offensive threat. He's kind of just like a lob threat, low post kind of guy. But he's so good defensively, dude. If you can put him and Wemby out there, you have two crazy off ball, shot blockers or whatever you want to run with them. You can do whatever you want with them defensively. Pick 21 is Memphis Grizzlies pick that they got from the Timberwolves via the Pistons, as you can see there. Um, it was Kareem Lopez, the first or the highest drafted Mexican-born player. The only one in the first round. I personally, I like the pick. I think it's a B plus. He is pretty raw as a prospect, but I feel like the Grizzlies are in a rebuild right now, so you can take these kind of high upside swings later in the first round. I really like him as a prospect. He's young. If he gets the chance to develop alongside Boozer, yeah, they kind of need a point guard. Since they're probably going to trade away Jaw, but I feel like they can get a young point guard in that Jaw deal. So I'm not too worried about that spot. And wings are at a commodity in this league, and if he can develop into a true 3-and-D wing or even better than that, then it's going to be perfect for them with the selection alongside Cameron Boozer. So 22 goes to the Philadelphia 76ers, and they select LeBaron Philon, which LeBaron Philon himself falling this down and getting selected, A minus, A minus selection, absolutely beautiful selection. They get this kind of talent, a lottery talent down at 22 is insane. But the thing is, he went to the 76ers, who the last position they needed is guard, okay? Guard is the only thing that they have secure. Joel Embiid can't stay healthy for a whole freaking season. He can barely stay healthy for half the season. Paul George, oh, you hate that Paul George pick or that Paul George trade because he's making a ridiculous amount of money and he's not producing for that ridiculous amount of money. And it's just like he's a small guard, so he can't exactly move. All of you guys, all the three guards that they have are smaller guards. None of them are like 6'6" guards, so you can't exactly move on over to the wing and have all three of them start. So you just drafted like a backup guard, and I feel like it's a Jared McCain situation all over again. So I just feel like it would have been an A plus pick if a different team had him that needed a guard. You know, like the Grizzlies, if they would have selected him, if he would have gotten that 21, the pick beforehand, it would have been an A plus of a pick. Absolute steal of the draft. But I just don't know what they're doing over there because they need literally every other position outside of guard, and they went guard. But can you really blame them? Draft best available, whatever. So with that being said, we're going to move on to pick 23, which I gave a C because it's the Atlanta Hawks is a edge of four. I really like him. I just feel like you have enough defense. This guy's not, an amazing knockdown shooter. He's an like I feel you need shooters. You need someone to be able to shoot the ball at like a 40% clip at least. So they took another like defensive wing prospect, which I suppose is fine, but I feel like you need if he can develop into a 3-point shot, it'll be an absolute perfect of a pick. You know, I have to shut up, but I feel like he should have gone with a shooter here. But I digress. Okay, pick 24. The Lakers select Cameron Carr. I'm not as high on Cameron Carr as other people are. I've seen some other people give this, an A plus. Still a draft type of pick. People absolutely loving Cameron Carr. I'm not that high on Cameron Carr. I thought he could have gone, somewhere between like the 18 to 28 range. Those 10 picks somewhere in there. Some people had him as a lottery talent. I did not, but it's overall a good pick for the Lakers. I wish he could shoot the ball a little bit better to pair with his athleticism. Obviously, he's not a horrendous shooter, but he's not a great shooter. I just An athletic wing is kind of the type they need. if he can develop into like a true 3 and D athletic wing to pair along with Luca, I feel like it'll, end up being a perfect pick for them. But I just feel like as of right now, he doesn't fit what they're trying to build with Luca, with Austin Reeves, and maybe LeBron James. But we'll have to see if he even comes back to the Lakers. Okay, pick 25 uh ended up being Sergio Del Rey out of Spain, right? And it ended up going to the Mavericks. I did not like him. I feel like he's a pretty raw prospect still. I feel like he would have benefited spending another year overseas, but understandable why you would want to declare for the draft. So I gave it a C plus. Dallas Mavericks, I feel like they're trying to, get ready for that Kyrie Irving departure, which is kind of inevitable with his injury history this last year and then his age. Plus, they're like an up and coming team. And can you really compete with, some of the big dogs in the West, like the OKC, like Spurs? So I feel like it'll be a good future pick. I feel like it doesn't have that high of a ceiling, but he doesn't have that lower floor either. So I feel like if they can get him to develop alongside Kyrie Irving, it'll be just a fine pick, which is honestly kind of what you're looking for. Pick 25. So pick 26. The Spurs, the Spurs traded with the Nuggets to select Terrence Reed. I really like this pick. I gave it a B plus. I again, now you have another center to pair along everybody else in that second group when Wemby comes off the floor, and hopefully you don't have to worry about the non-Wemby minutes like the non-Jokic minutes are in Denver, where it's absolutely abysmal. But I don't understand how they let this happen. They let the two big dogs in the West get just significantly better. Like I feel like the biggest winners of the draft are the freaking Spurs and OKC Thunder, and it's ridiculous. It's like, how would you let that happen due to like where they were drafting and who they got? It's stupid. I just don't understand how they do this. It's frustrating. Pick 27, Boston Celtics. Select Chris Nat. I gave it an A minus because I really like him. I love his defense. He's not going to be your stretch wing, stretch center type of guy, a modern stretch five or whatever. But he's amazing at defense, and Celtics are known for developing talent. They need the center, and who knows if they're going to end up trading Jalen Brown. Yeah, there's a report saying that they want like 4 first round picks out of him, and who wants somebody who's got 3 years left on the deal? Sure, but at $60+ million each year. So who knows if they end up getting rid of him? They'll probably end up staying. But Chris Knight is, I feel like, just perfect to pair alongside with them. You can kind of stick him on anybody. He's, can guard all 5 positions. Maybe outside like a true shifty guard like a Tyrese Halliburton or a Kyrie Irving. Maybe those archetypes he won't be able to guard. But at the same time, then you have Jalen Brown to just stick on them. So I feel like it was an absolutely perfect pick for the Boston Celtics. I don't think there's much else to say. Brooklyn Nets here at 28, they selected Joshua Jefferson. Did not love that pick for them. I feel like, oh my God, I feel like it would have benefited him a lot to go to more of a contender, you know, somebody that needs some shooting, maybe like the Spurs potentially. I don't know. I just feel like he would have benefited a lot from going elsewhere. He is a little bit older, being, what is he, like 22, 23, something like that. So I just feel like he's more of a win now type prospect than a future, you know, prospect, which the Brooklyn Nets are obviously having to look to the future. So I just don't love the fit. But, he's not a bad prospect by any means. I feel like he could develop decently, and that's kind of what you're looking for, here at pick 28, some role players and, maybe a gem, some hit on somebody and just exceed expectations, but who knows? 29. Uh, Kings selected Alex Caravan. Why? This is the lowest grade I have in the draft. I gave it a D minus because Alex Caravan is, a senior. He's old. He would have benefited going to somebody who needs a shooter like, you know, the Nuggets, who need a wing shooter to replace Michael Porter Jr. from this last year. You know, I just Why would Sacramento take him? He's a good player. If a whole list of other teams would have taken him, I would have given him like a B, something like that. But for the Kings to take him, they're not competing anytime soon. Why would you take a player that's, a senior, that's old? I don't understand what the process, the thought process here was. Why didn't they take somebody like, Isaiah Evans, who fell to the second round, or Malik Thomas, or, any of those guys? It would have been better than Alex Caravan here, but they took him here, and I gave him a D minus for it. Pick 30, the Phoenix Suns ended up with the Cole Pete pick. It kind of bounced around a little bit, and I didn't know who had it for a while. I'm gonna be honest with you, but the Suns had it. Ended up with Cole Pete, who I personally really like here at the end of the first round. I gave him a B plus for it. I feel like he's a really high upside prospect. I had him ranked a little bit higher, around like the lower 20s. So I feel like they got a pretty good deal out of it here. Obviously, the Suns, they want to compete right now, but I don't know how competitive they're going to be out in the West. So we'll have to see how that ends up turning out. But I feel like this is a good pick for the future. He'll probably get some good minutes. He'll be allowed to make some mistakes over in Phoenix, but at the same time, he has a good timeline in order to develop, and hopefully, if Devin Booker ends up leaving or getting traded and they end up blowing it all up, he can be, a true number one guy and a franchise, cornerstone for them. But yeah, that's going to be it for the first round. I don't think I'm going to be doing a second round. Maybe just some of these guys that didn't have a first round pick, like the Denver Nuggets, teams like that who only ended up selecting in the second round. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you come back and see it again.